Is it still like this picture? It's a little bit. Some of it is. It's a good start, isn't it? Dexter, how are you?
I am again. I'll try to.
He may be drunk. That often happens with him. He loses days at a time. Years of his life, I believe, have gone that way.
It's true. At this point, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I may start to give the true story of Dexter Fletcher in a minute if he doesn't show up. If you cover off all the other sort of pink, look at my hand next to it, because my hand actually isn't that far off the tones of the face itself. Obviously, very different. My hand over here probably looks a bit more green, and so it's probably not as green as you think. Firstly, secondly, there are a lot more greens in skin tones, I think, than we realise. If you look at Lucian Freud's paintings, he was very good at subtly exaggerating these things. But when you're close up to one of his, you can't really believe that it'll look like actual flesh from a distance, but it always does. And it somehow looks more real than any photograph does, because he really did see colour beautifully. You can get away with making mistakes in most of the painting, and the drawing not being too accurate. In some ways, sometimes notice if I use photos too much, I sometimes find the sort of superficial accuracy gets greater, but you lose something. You lose a bit of, obviously, the animation. You lose a bit of a sense of somehow the real experience of seeing someone, where you're constantly correcting for the changes in their face. I think that it's going to need a bit more hair at some point to capture the sort of mad, egotistical director in full motion. Is there any Dexter lookalikes out there we could get online? Of any of you that can do good Dexter impressions? Stick on a Boris wig and some silly glasses. Dexter would like FaceTime, would he? I bet he would. What do you think? Shall we? Should we answer him? What I try to do on the whole in my studio is have a few interesting things behind me, so that if people kind of get bored of looking at me, that they can sort of like look at other things there rather than start looking around the room. At least if I start noticing them getting particularly twitchy, then I can obviously put on a funny hat or do whatever it takes.
That's when you put on your tutu or your fake nose and moustache.
Exactly. What I've done is I've made a little mix of my own with some terps, about 50-50 terps and linseed oil, stand oil. And then the secret sauce, well, you got to be a bit careful with it, is clove oil. You put a few drops of that in, which basically slows down the drying, which means that the stuff I was doing a few days ago is still wet enough to work into. Be really careful with it, because if you put too much in there, it might never dry.
I just want to check these sounded quieter today than normal.
Yeah, I mean, that was deliberate, because everyone was complaining about how much you were talking last time.
I'm not going to say a word or move. I'm going to hold my breath until the end of the whole broadcast. And see what I go.
I'm not sure that's possible, is it? If their hair is an important part of someone's sort of persona, then obviously that becomes a reason for kind of making a bigger deal of it. And I think, but the hair is something we change often quite a lot. I mean, yours will change, less so now, but when you were acting, it would change a lot. And I think it's one of those things where, actually, it's sort of, it is a slightly more ephemeral thing, a bit like what we're wearing. It does tell a story, but it's, it can also be a misleading story or a kind of transient one. And whereas the face is pretty consistent on the whole, and as we get older, of course, the lines in our face are kind of a part of who we are, and a part of all the expressions we've always made. And so it's like your face, really does become your biography as you get older. I'd love to get the impression that I was, I mean, this is what, 2.5 hours in or so. I mean, sometimes they kind of work quickly, and sometimes they work fantastically well. But sometimes they really don't, and that was my hesitation about doing this at all. You know, we all have good and bad days, and I didn't want to either. Obviously didn't want it to be a bad day, and make everyone think that I'm completely useless, but also didn't want it to just make it look so easy that people assume that it's supposed to go like that every time. If in doubt, do what's there, because we are more sensitive, I think, than we realise to picking up little clues about light. And like the light in the eyes, it needs to be kind of consistent. Both eyes need to be consistent, and it needs to be, if possible, expressive where the light's actually coming from. So if you obviously the light broadly from this side of the face, the reflection will be on that side of the eyes, obviously, and even to the extent of where they are. If you have the reflection lower, like in the middle of the eye, can sometimes imply different expressions. So you can sometimes give the sense of someone smiling, even if their mouth's quite fixed, just by putting a couple of just doing changing the shading in the corner of the eye and putting a reflection. It's like a sort of slightly as if the eyes are kind of tightening into a smile, basically.
Our neighbors, to entertain their child, basically sitting, something is buzzing by our windows. I thought somebody's drilling something. I come to a window, and 10 minutes later, after I lost the plot, and our neighbor entertains child with a drone, and drone is in front of our window with a camera pointing in our kitchen.
And you're naked cooking again.
And my naked cooking again. So I am so bloody distressed.
Yeah. Can we get any of that footage on here?
Well, can you have to contact my neighbor for that.
My phone's running low on battery.
Great. I
might just disappear.
I'm going to do a screenshot.